the State Department has openly announced its catch and revoke program that has been used to scan social media posts of either student visa holders or green card holders for so-called pro-Hamas sentiment. More than 400 foreign students have had their student visas revoked in the 3 weeks that Catch and Revoke has been in operation. There are 1.5 million student visa holders nationwide. Everyone is fair game, one official said. They are not publishing the data on who has been, whose visas have been revoked. But again, this is obviously, we saw the arrest of, the young Turkish PhD student at Tufts. Obviously Mahmoud Khalil, Ali Reza Durudi, I believe, an Iranian student at University of Alabama. I think Mamadou Tal, just left the country, was not detained, but had to self-deport, which I really hate that terminology. But Taylor, you've been reporting on actually some of the not exactly what the State Department is using, but how even universities are using other or being duped by certain things like an AI generated news website. This is from yourusermag.co. Yale University suspended a law school scholar after an AI generated news website claimed she was a member of a terrorist organization, and there is an update which she has been actually terminated from Yale Law School. And I wanted you to explain. Her name is Heli Dupagi. She's from Iran originally, and she had a whole response. But maybe you could just explain what the hell an AI generated smear campaign?
Yeah. So there is this website called Jewish Onliner that is very much not a legitimate news website. It is tied to Israeli intelligence and this group, basically that has done a bunch of. It sort of purports to be a news organization, but it empowered by AI capabilities. But Haaretz, the Jewish or the Israeli newspaper, reported that it actually engages in a lot of bot activities and it has ties to Act.il, which is a Hasbara initiative that Israel funds to push disinformation. And so there's this AI generated article about her that makes all of these insane claims and claims that she's tied to this the Palestinian Prisoner Solidarity Network, which is a pro-Palestinian advocacy group, which they claim is terrorism, of course.
Sure.
And
right.
So they've basically they use, and she actually doesn't have ties to any, like, she's innocent of all of these things that they're claiming, of course, but just the implication is that she's, a Hamas supporter and all this stuff. And so she was punished from this AI generated news article that is completely untrue and is posted randomly. It's just clearly a smear campaign. And, I've dealt with actually these tactics before, because there's a bunch of weird AI generated articles about myself. As well. And, it was called, what is that terrible
Stop Anti-Semitism?
Stop Anti-Semitism went through all, they went to the Washington Post and sent all of these. It was this whole campaign. It was like, Taylor's anti-Semitic because she criticized Israel and all this stuff. So, and they were using a lot of these AI generated articles. So
and how did Washington Post deal with that? I mean, what happened?
I don't even want to get into it, but I think people can.
I mean, we know you left, but I'm just like,
I left. This was before. This was before, I'm
assuming it was a struggle to get them to not take this.
They didn't have any idea. They don't have any idea of how this stuff works. I don't think most people that run newsrooms can even tell what's an AI generated website,
which is wild because they're actually running legitimate websites, right?
No, they have absolutely no ability to even remotely understand these campaigns. My editor did. Mark Seibel, shout out, the best editor I ever had at the Washington Post for years. He retired in June. And once he retired, he couldn't explain these things to me. Like I worked remotely. So like I would just file my stories from LA, but like he was the one that would explain like, okay, here's why Taylor is getting all of this stuff. Here's what this account really is. This account it actually isn't about this. And he left last June, which is ultimately what made me want to go independent, because I can't do the work that I do with an organization that doesn't understand and recognize bad faith campaigns. So
I was actually part of a question I wanted to ask you, but I feel like it really does fit in this, because it shows you just how ill-equipped not just news organizations, but these, elite institutions, universities are when it comes to dealing with real misinformation, disinformation, whatever, literal fake news.
Well, a lot of them print literal fake news. Just to be clear, they're printing the propaganda, right? Like the New York Times is printing the propaganda. I was told at one news organization that I worked at that Israel is our ally. And
what? Okay. Who's that's so
not my ally.
Yeah, exactly. How many people do they know there are Muslims who are employed by this organization?
Well, increasingly there aren't Muslims employed in these major newsrooms, and they certainly don't have any sort of voice or leadership. So I mean, there's always been this double standard. Right. And they won't let a Palestinian cover Palestine, but they'll let a former IDF soldier write propaganda. Like the whole thing is such a farce.
That they've still yet to apologize for, in terms of the what screams without words.
Oh, that's the goal, right? But that's the goal, is to lie. The goal is to mislead people. I mean, it's funny because I grew up, like, I'm sure you did, but like the Iraq war was like such a big thing when I was growing up, and obviously was like very against it. And, I remember that the news would like lie. And so I always sort of thought, well, they're just liars. And then when I started to work at these places in the 2010s, I was like, maybe they're good. Yeah. And then it's like, 2020 hit. And I was like, oh no, they're no.
Yeah. No, they don't. They are more concerned about power and access. I just want to go back to Heli. I don't know if I'm pronouncing this. I want to say Heli just because it's Severancy, but Hele. It's a Heli.
Hell yeah. I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name right either, but so she was targeted by one of these disinformation campaigns, and Yale took it seriously. Before she was fired, she actually posted publicly her response, which you might have seen.
I wanted to read that actually just to you. I mean, it's long, but she says, look, I'm a scholar who stands unequivocally against imperialism, the U.S. Zionist genocide, but my presence, particularly as a Muslim Iranian woman at an elite university that is deeply entangled in the material and ideological structures of genocide, is intolerable to the forces of fascism that are ruling this country. The attacks against me, including defamatory smears amped up by fascist trolls, are emblematic of a broader official policy of this authoritarian regime to weaponize AI to target students, faculty, and organizers who dare speak out against genocide, systemic starvation, ethnic cleansing, and Palestinians. It's now formalized under the recent Catch and Revoke initiative and marks a dangerous escalation in state repression, one designed to foster an atmosphere of fear, on and on and on and on. It's a Zionist McCarthyism. She goes on. It's not a display of strength. It's a last refuge of a crumbling order. I mean, it's so, incredibly written. But she also says, this is a bad faith process. It became evident from the administration's insistence on an immediate interrogation with an unreasonable timeline from a type of attorney hired to, quote, interview me, from the fact that this outside counsel refused to answer questions about procedural protections, and from the denial of my request for a brief religious accommodation. We all know it's been, Ramadan and Eid just recently. While Yale Law School's singular concern with maintaining the approval of the Zionist backers who bankroll their complicity in genocide led the organization to pressure me into an interrogation that I had every reason to believe was designed not to uncover the truth, but to justify a predetermined outcome. For further details from my lawyer, see his note at the end of this statement. And then she basically says, like, this is retaliation, but also Yale has deep financial ties to weapons manufacturers. Using publicly available tax filings, the university's assets managers include JLL Partners linked to General Dynamics, Lockheed Martin, Farallon Capital, which invests in Howmet Aerospace, a company that produces the key components for F-35 fighter jets used by Israel in committing genocide. So on her way out, and this was before she was fully expelled, this was just suspended, she's like, shots fired, like, she's like, look, I'm putting you on blast too. But it's just so wild. I mean, Taylor, we're also in a moment, we know that actually AI systems have been used to kill people in Gaza.
Yeah.
And kill people who were just presumed supposed Hamas fighters. And actually, in fact, maximize the impact by making sure they killed them when they got home to their apartments. Again, alleged Hamas fighters. So it's just...
They're not even Hamas. The Red Crescent workers, they call Hamas fighters. They call anybody a Hamas. By the way, Hamas, the IDF is a terrorist group. Okay. The US military is a terrorist group.
Yep.
We commit more atrocities than Hamas could even imagine. So I don't, it's absurd. All of it. And
but do we have
defense
tunnels?
Of Hamas. It's just like, right. Like, it's
we
just
have
like
nukes, but no tunnels. Do you know what a tunnel can do?
God. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, just thinking, I really hope that Heli could be like taken. She could be, I don't know what her student visa status is. I'm not clear on that. I don't know if you have more information, but it's also really terrifying that Yale is sort of like paving the way. Again, these prestigious universities for their students to be targeted.
Doing. Columbia's like actively,
Yeah, it's not that prestigious.
Columbia.
I'm not an Ivy Leaguer.
I went to state school.
We're like, I don't know. But yes, obviously people are speaking out, but it's just incredible reporting, and just the fact that, like, yeah, as someone who was targeted also by AI smears, like it's so fucking easy to figure out whether these are real or not. What's going on, Frantifa? If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that button. And also, you can become a patron and support the show every single week. Get access to bonus episodes and exclusive merchandise. Patreon.com/bitchuation room. Do it.